Alright, this is number 25 on the Algebra 2 practice test. It says select each function that has an inverse that is also a function for all values of x. Alright, so what is it asking? Select each function. That means we're going to have multiple answers. Okay, multiple answers that has an inverse. All right, we have to know what the inverse is. That is also a function. All right, so we know it has to pass the vertical line test. All right, so when we talk about inverses, when you solve an equation, you have to switch the x and y and solve. We also know that an inverse is a reflection across the y equal x. So this is a reflection across the y equal x. All right, so we're trying to make sense of what we have to do here. So select each, multiple answers, select each function that has an inverse, which means it reflects across the y equal x. That is also a function. So it has to pass the vertical line test for all values of x. So the reason we're looking at these is you can solve each one of these for the inverse, but if you know your basic parent functions, you can just very quickly generalize whether these are solutions or not. So first thing is just bear with me. My graphs are going to be terrible, but if you have a graph, you know that a quadratic function, this has a positive, it's going to be a U-shaped graph somewhere. Okay, now the y equal x goes between quadrants 1 and 3. It kind of breaks it in half. So if this is a reflection, the inverse is a reflection across this line, that means I'm going to have a positive or negative square root function. So this one would not be a choice because even though a quadratic function is a function, the square root, positive and minus square root function is not a function. All right, so B part, I have a positive slope, I have a line, and if I have a negative slope line, it's still going to be a function. So linear equation will have an inverse that is a function. 3/2 is the same as 1.5, so this is also just a linear equation with a positive slope, which means it also will have an inverse that is a function. All right, so D part is a cubic function, which means its inverse is a cube root function. All right, if you think back to your parent functions, I'm going to sketch another poor graph here. So if you have a cubic function, then your inverse is going to be something like this. So this one would also pass the vertical line test. And the last one is a quartic function. So if you look at a quartic function, it's kind of similar. It kind of may have a hump or whatever, but it's going to be kind of something similar to quadratic. It'll just have some kind of different view here in the middle. All right, so if you reflect that across this y equals x line, it's going to be something like this. And if you use your vertical line test, you can see it would cross multiple points at a time. So that one would not have an inverse that is a function. So your answers for 25 are B, C, and D.